Hey YouTube, welcome back to APS-C. This is a channel about getting started using mainly APS-C crop sensor digital cameras and just getting out there, getting shooting, and seeing what you can get and proving that you don't need all of the latest and greatest gear. I don't know if you guys could hear that. That was some noises outside. So on the lines of not needing all of the latest and greatest gear, not necessarily an APS-C camera, but definitely an old camera, I picked up my first film camera today, which is the Nikon FM. So I don't know a ton about it. I don't know much about film. I've never shot a film camera before. I wanted to see if I could slow down the photo making process for myself and my thinking out on the streets, because with the digital camera, it feels more like taking photos instead of making photos, because I'm relying so much on the camera to do the work, which isn't a problem. I think especially when you're getting started, you want to be out there hitting that shutter button as much as you can just to see what you can get and learning from that. But I wanted to try and slow myself down a little bit and think through the actual settings, think through the exposure triangle a little bit more to really understand and hone my skills and understanding of making a photo. And so with this camera, you will see right on top, I have the shutter speed dial, so I'm actually having to manually move this dial to change what shutter speed is going to be used. I also, on the lens, have an aperture ring, so I have to manually change the aperture. And I should note that I am using a 50mm f2 lens. This is one of Nikon's older lenses. This is not an AI lens, so it's one of the old original lenses, f-mount lenses. The other thing is the focus. There is no autofocus here. Everything is going to be manual focus, manual aperture, manual shutter speed, and I have set the ISO. You kind of set this to the film. This first roll of film I am going to be shooting on Portra 400, so I have set that at 400. And that's really it. In terms of features, there is a meter inside that's battery powered. Everything else is mechanical. So we're gonna just see what happens when I get out there, slow myself down, and really take some photos. So this is, although we started in the office today, we're gonna head out on the streets and see what that experience is like. And then we will come back here to talk about it.
Live from Chicago.
Hopping on with that voice over. For this first shot of the evening, I went with the classic Marina Towers and just kind of the tops of them with some of the sky. It's really nerve-wracking using this camera, as you'll see in a minute, so I take my time and I do what I can. After this, I end up walking over to the other side of the river and kind of back the other direction, but I first see these stairs and think I'm going to be able to make something out of the stairs looking back using some of the pillars from the tower I'm standing under. However, when I get down, you can see this bridge kind of crossing over and the jeweler building right behind it. You will see that I second guess my settings here a lot. I intentionally left all of this in. This is me lifting the camera, bringing down the camera, changing my settings, checking again, going back and forth. I normally am able to take images and keep moving within just a couple of minutes. And I cut this down in this entire process, the up and down, changing these settings, took me over 10 minutes to actually feel confident in even right there pulling the film lever. It is not until right about this moment that I actually take the photo. So you can see this adjustment to film is going to take a little while. It is slowing me down, but I'm thinking through that, and hopefully that ends up being one of my better shots. So I was walking down the other way, I did end up seeing the Wrigley building. I liked the way the light was hitting it, the sunset, so I took a quick photo there. I got to the base of the Wrigley building, turned around and saw the Jeweler building again in a kind of a different frame, and ended up taking that photo. I then moved over to Michigan Avenue, and I see this stairway down to Lower Wacker, some of the lower streets that are all kind of called Lower Wacker. And I got my settings and then waited for the perfect subject, and this woman here was that, which actually happened pretty quickly. So I took that photo. She ran off and caught her bus and was none the wiser. So that was a good photo to get to. Here you can see it's February, but Christmas decorations are still out, Christmas lights are still out, so I used some of that to frame the Hancock building. Here you can see this hotel lights, and to my left, what you can't see right now is there's a guy that's being lit by another light, and it looks like he is trying to get a cigarette lit or something, but I see him and I kind of slow down, turn around, and just take this photo. So he didn't notice. It's one that I'm a little closer and being a little bit more obvious about, especially because I'm standing in the middle of the light, but I think I got it. Hopefully the settings were somewhat close to what they should have been. I then decided to do a little bit more of a modern photo, even though I'm using film. The super modern Apple store, the way the top of it's designed to be like a MacBook, and the super bright, even in this video, blown out Apple logo. And I wait until the right people are in the frame or not in the frame, but I think I was able to get the right composition. Now I had this idea as it was getting darker that I was going to need to find light in other creative ways, and so I see these big storefronts with a lot of light coming out of them, and I'm just going to kind of see if I can get a little bit of a reflection or light coming onto a subject as they walk by. This guy was a little too close to me, and so I moved on. This woman was walking slow enough, but ends up, as you can see, she's a little far away from the window and just wasn't able to do what I was hoping, and I decided to move on. But then I get a third chance at it, and I see another subject walking who is pretty close to the windows, and I tuck back and am able to get what I was looking for. At that point, I wrap it up. I head back up to the L to head home.
Doors closing.
All right, I am back in the office. So I went out and I did my first photo shoot, street photos, with the Nikon FM, a film camera. Completely manual camera. The only thing that is auto or even electronically assisted is the metering system. And so I wanted to give you a few of my thoughts. You've kind of seen some of the behind the scenes of my point of view of the photos that I was attempting to make with this camera. But I wanted to give you some of my thoughts on what it was like to make those photos, to use this camera after using a digital APS-C camera from Nikon that I have had for about 4 years now. Instead of being able to rely on the camera for autofocus, I had to use manual focus on the lens. Instead of having aperture priority, every setting was manually adjusted. And that did slow me down, and which was entirely the point of what I wanted out of getting this camera. So I was thinking through compositions more clearly, because I knew that after I press that shutter, it's going to be weeks before I see that image and if I know if it's good or not. And therefore, I have to do my best to, in the moment, get that image. I can't quickly take a snapshot, look at it on the back of the camera, and then decide, oh, I just need to tweak it here, I just need to move there, I need to, if I take 2 steps this way, is it in focus? I can't do those things. I can't review it on the back of the camera because it's film. So that was really a mental hurdle for me to get over as I was taking these images. I was out there exploring, taking a lot of very basic photos of things that I have made images of before, of Marina Towers, things on Michigan Avenue, the Jeweler Building, Wrigley Building. All of these things are iconic buildings downtown that I've made images of before, but really having to think through it from a different perspective really challenged me. And so I share all of this with you to encourage you to maybe get out there, again, use the gear that you have, and I want you to be intentional about thinking through an image from all perspectives, that be in every setting that your camera is using, and not necessarily relying just on the auto features of your camera. That's a good place to start as you isolate individual components, but be working towards using a camera in full manual mode, every setting. And it doesn't have to be a film camera. I decided to do that because it would force me to do this, but you can do this with a digital camera too, where every setting is manual. Every setting is thought through, and your composition is going to be better for it. So the last thing I want to talk about is the weight of being able to actually see the images come to life, to see if they were good or not. Did I get anything in focus? Is anything exposed correctly? It's going to be a couple weeks before I get to see that, because I need to first finish shooting this roll of film. I then need to send it off to be developed, and then they will get sent back to me. I will then be able to review these images to see if they're any good. And I decided to not share them in this video because I want you to have that weight too. So although this is a street vlog, not a single image has been shared, and there's going to be a delay because that is part of this process, and I want to bring you along with me. So I could have just waited until I got them to edit this video, but I decided that was no fun. So I hope that's all right. I hope that you guys understand and have a little fun with me. Make sure and hit subscribe, turn the bell notifications on, give this video a like and a comment, and until next time, just get started.